Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this quick tips. This session, we will be covering advanced views. So we'll take a look at that here, and everybody will get a chance to see how this works. What do we have for an agenda today? Great question. What is a view? That is probably one of the big things that a lot of people ask. So I'll review that a little bit, and then we'll talk about some nested views, how you can put a view within a view, grouping, how you can group your views, and also a drag and drop a document into a view and it will actually get the same properties that are set up in that view. And we'll talk about some of the advanced filters, and there's a lot of them. Before I go any farther, if I could just get a quick show of hands, if you could raise your hand to confirm that you can hear my voice. If you could just do that real quick. Awesome, 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 awesome. I did try video this morning, but for some reason I was a big black blob on the video, so I just turned that off. Thank you for confirming that. Let's continue on. Excuse me. So what is a view? Basically, before we even describe that, let's talk about the three different types of views that you see with inside of M-Files. And one of the first things that you need to be aware of is the navigation in M-Files is a view. So when you look at the top of your M-Files, you have the all, recent, assigned, checked out, and pinned. These are views inside of M-Files. M-Files uses them for navigation. The next type of view is called a common view. These are views that are actually created by your system administrator. These views then created by your system administrator can be used by everybody in your organization. Then finally, you can create personal views. And these are views that are just for you. And if you choose, you can share them by email. Now, what is a view inside of M-Files? Basically, the short answer is a view is a saved search inside of M-Files. Now let's talk more about that saved search. When you're creating your view, you're specifying the information that you want to see on the metadata card. So basically the view is looking specifically at the metadata card to see if it matches the criteria in your view. So a really good hint is to search and find the metadata card of a like document that you want to include in a view, pop that out and always use that as a reference in creating your view to make sure that you get it the way you want it to. Okay, let's actually jump into the program and create a couple. Okay, so for one of the first things we were talking about is nested views. So I'm going to create a brand new personal view from scratch. And I'm going to call this invoices. We'll call it vendor invoices. Okay, the first thing I want to do is I'm going to set a very simple filter. So I'm going to go to define a filter. We go to the properties tab and I'm going to click on add condition. And this is going to be sort of broad. So I'm going to do class and I'm going to have it equal the vendor invoice. So that's pretty broad. I'm going to click OK. Click OK. Let's make sure it does what we want it to do. So I'm going to double click on the view. Okay, I have some vendor invoices. Cool. I want to do a little bit more with that view. I talked about some grouping there. So I'm going to go back in to make an edit. So I select my view, right click, and we're going to go down to properties to make some edits. So what I want to do at this point is I want to add a grouping. So if you can think of this sort of the top down, so we defined a filter vendor invoices, and now I'm adding a little bit more by grouping. So I'm going to click on add, and you're going to see a lot of capability here. Now we're going to do it by vendor, so I let it know that it's a vendor. Then I still have to describe the property. I'm going to leave it to, so I'm going to type in vendor. Now when I click on the drop down, I want vendor object because that's coming from an external database. The next most important thing here is, do you want to show empty folders? Now the quick answer would be no. Only show me stuff that has information in it. So I'm going to unmark empty folders box. I'm going to click OK. So now I've added a grouping level for the vendor object. I'm going to click apply, click OK. Let's see what this looks like. So we added a grouping level. Cool. So now when I go into one of these vendors, they have an invoice. Okay, so now we've got that. Let's say when I go into this vendor invoice, now I don't have a lot of data in my vault. Let's say that you have a lot of data in your vault. And this vendor list is huge, long, long, long. And you want to group it alphabetically, and you want to group it in like subcategories, you know, A and B together, that group, and C and D together, and so forth. Well, you can go into your view, and I'm in the view right now, and you can see that up here at the top. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to go down. I'm going to say group folders by, oh, excuse me, group folders by first letter, right there. Notice what happens. Pretty slick. And then I could go in there and see my vendors from A to D. And I could back up and go to the E and H, and so forth and so on. Pretty nice. I do want to point out here before I move on to the nested ones, let me jump back to the PowerPoint here real quick. If you try that grouping by letter and you're getting an error, and the error message would say the property, name and title cannot be used to define a grouping level. Select a different property. What this is telling you is that you haven't done something in admin. So this does require admin rights. What you need to do is log into that admin in that vault, go to properties, and what you need to do is you need to mark a box or click on show all property definitions. Then you'll locate a property called name or title. You right click on that property, you'll get a message, click OK through the message, and then the screenshot to the right, once you're into that, you want to mark a box that says, allow this property to be used in the grouping level in views. Once you make that selection, you can log out of the mFiles, log back into mFiles, and you'll be able to group what I just showed you with the first letter. Moving on, let's talk about nesting, a view within a view. Now, I do want to caution you against going too deep. When you think about this, you got to think exactly what you want to do. So in your first search, you don't want to eliminate everything before you get to your second search. Remember, that's what a view is. So I'm going to create a view inside of this view. So I'm in vendor invoice. I'm going to click plus. I'm going to go to view. This time I'm going to do a workflow. I'm going to define a filter, and this one's going to be pretty broad again. In this case, I'm going to choose workflow because there's a specific workflow I want. And the workflow is going to be new invoice. I'm going to click OK. So now I have the class selected for my view workflow. What I want to do now is I want to go in and define a grouping. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say state because I want to know the state that the workflow is in. And I'm not going to show empty folders, and I click OK. So I did a view within a view, and I added a grouping in the view within a view. Let's click OK. So what that does is creates another view within my view workflow. When I double click on this, I can see that it created two categories. This is a pretty simple workflow. I have invoices paid, so I double click on that. It shows me which invoices have been paid. I can back up and I can go to invoices received, and it shows me the invoices that have been received but have not been paid. So you can do some really, really cool and elaborate things with your views. You just have to sort of map it out and think about what you want to do. Let's sort of review what we did. Oh, excuse me, before I do that, we have another item that's that drag and drop. So let me give you an example of that. So I have a view here in my personal views called application. So I have a job application here from my folder. So when I drag the document in and drop it on the view, it's going to inherit those view properties. So you will see that the class was selected for application. That came from that view. And then I just provide the rest of the information. Pretty nice. So that's a quick and easy way. If the document's like, for an example, a vendor invoice, you drag it into that view, it inherits those properties of the view. I'm going to cancel this. Okay, let's talk about creating another one just to go through those steps again. So I'm going to click on plus, view. I'm going to call this pictures, and I'm going to call it pictures 2 because I already have one. I'm going to define my broad filter. Click OK. When I click OK, I can go in here and I can see I have a lot of pictures. Go back to that view, edit. I'm going to add a grouping, and I'm going to have taken by. Oh, excuse me, picture taken by. There we go. All thumbs today on the keyboard. There we go. I'm going to not show empty folders. Click OK, apply, click OK, double click again. Pretty cool. Now, if I want to add that letter designation, that's a right click, and I go to group by first letters. There we go. And I can go into these and see what's going on. Pretty slick way to organize your information. Two things to remember real quickly when you're creating your views is there are a lot of features, and these are some of the advanced features. When you define a filter, you can actually lock down to only show you certain objects. If you make that choice, remember it's only showing you those objects. So do be careful with that one. Permissions, you can actually control who can see the view as well. A couple other things to talk about real quickly is when you're inside of a view, you can actually search within your view. That's very handy, especially if you have a very large view. The other thing to be aware of is you can actually right click on a view and you can pin a view. And what that does is puts it in your pinned area. That's pretty handy also. What I want to do at this point is I want to actually open it up for questions. And I did see a couple questions come in this morning. The first one is, can I export a view data? Great question. And the answer is yes, you can. So if I go into my vendor invoice for an example, and I right click on that, I can go here to export. And then I can choose what information I want exported. I can export the IDs of values, or I can export the actual files. Another question came in. Can I search just in the view? Oh, I just showed that. Did that answer that question? Awesome. Okay. Oh, and I actually answered the third one as well. Can I pin a view? And the answer to that is yes. I want to open it up for any other questions to see if we have any other ones. If you do have a question, please use the chat window to ask your question. I'm not seeing any other questions come in right now. So what I want to do is talk briefly about what's coming up next. Our next quick tip is going to be May 21st, and that's going to be dealing with advanced columns, what you can do inside of the column area, adding things, sorting, and a lot of other stuff. If you want to register for the webinars, scan the QR code. That will take you to the Marcos website where you can actually sign up and register for upcoming webinars. Please take a moment at the end of today's webinar to fill out a brief survey to let us know how I did today and what topics you would like to see in the quick tips area. I'd like to thank everybody for attending today's session. Have a great day.